Derek, I'm going to go to you. I do want to talk about Tony Pollard at some point, but we got a long time. We were talking off air about the pressure on Mike McCarthy, and I was hoping that you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, it was when we were talking about this before, you guys were diving in, is what was some of the great things that the Cowboys have done and what's going on, their accomplishments this year with last year and everything. And something that stood out to me is I also was thinking, and this wasn't like an accomplishment, but there's pressure on McCarthy. Obviously last year, they still had a good year, but they didn't have what they wanted.
Yep.
And on top of that, going into this year, it was all about who cares what McCarthy did. Like he could go undefeated. We're going after Sean Payton.
Yeah.
So I just felt like this whole time for McCarthy, it's like the dude's got a target on his back. It doesn't care. Nobody cares what he's doing. He could be as successful as he wants. They're ready to move on and go get Sean Payton. So that's why I was curious. Do you think that plays into the major factor too with McCarthy? It's like there's so much more pressure on him because they're already kind of trying to move on from him.
I really do. I think he is, and I could end up being very wrong about this. I think he is a wild card loss away from getting fired.
See that?
I'm not.
No, I'm with you.
I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just telling you that's what I believe.
But he's getting into the playoffs. That's the big thing. I don't see the Eagles. They're gonna lose a few more games. The Giants, I think, they're a joke of a team. It's just.
You think the Cowboys are gonna smoke them tomorrow?
Yes, I do actually. Which, whenever we get to that point, they're gonna absolutely demolish them. That game should be sponsored by Dude Wipes.
You need to win some bets against me, man.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. But I think that's the big one too. They're gonna take care of them. The only team that I would say could keep lurking their way up would be the Commanders.
Commies.
Yeah, sorry. But that, again, I think the Cowboys do end up running away and getting the division. I think the Eagles are going to slip up. They're barely getting through it right now.
Okay, to help facilitate that, then I decided to do some research to see if it matches up with our perception. Our perception is that when Zeke and Tony Pollard play, Tony Pollard never gets more carries than Zeke. Is that a fair perception?
That is a fair perception.
I bet it's true.
It is true. It has happened one time ever.
I'm going to guess. Can I guess?
Yes.
Maybe it was the game that Zeke came back from holding out because he wanted a lot of money.
That is a fair guess. It was actually last Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Pollard got 10 carries, Zeke got 9. That's it. That is the only game that those two have played together where where Pollard has gotten more carries than Zeke. Now, to go along with that, this last game was only the second game ever where they've had the same amount of carries. And so it seems like that's a losing battle, and it's just about how many touches do you get. So I decided to take a look into the history of Tony Pollard. In his entire career, Tony Pollard had 2 receiving touchdowns. He matched that on Sunday.
Look at that.
In his entire career, Tony Pollard had 1 game with more than 60 yards receiving. He matched that Sunday.
Boom.
In his entire career, Tony Pollard had 2 games with more than 4 receptions. Obviously, he had 6 in that game. And I heard Jerry yesterday with Sean and RJ, and he was like, yeah, look, I'm not going to get into the weeds about specific touches and everything like that. I just think you saw on Sunday another very viable, very explosive outlet to take advantage of Tony Pollard. Whether that means he gets the same amount of carries as Zeke, 3 less, 4 less, whatever, you can make it up and using him as an explosive receiver.
I think if I'm going to reference this a lot of times today, Derek, the Cowboys video that they posted from the sidelines yesterday, there is a moment where Skip Pete's sitting next to both of them, and he tells Zeke, "I'm going to start him, and you're going to finish." And Zeke's like, "All right." He goes, "All right," and then they show the drive. Tony Pollard gets a big run, sets up Zeke on the goal line. Zeke gets the touchdown, and that's the combination that they're comfortable with right now.
Yeah, I feel like you could also use, like, if they keep doing what they did against Minnesota with Pollard, I think that would be huge. Like, it's going to be explosive for them and exposes more for those guys and gives Zeke a little more opportunity to do more of the running side of it, because you're going to be able to throw it out to Pollard as well.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a Darren Sproles.
And I think that's been the big thing for a lot of people is you want to take advantage of Tony Pollard's explosive nature. And for a time, it felt like, he's a running back, so that would be by handing him the ball. But you are seeing more and more, to your point, that does not have to be the only way that he can make a huge impact on the game. I would love to see them take more advantage of that going forward.
This could be dumb for me here to ask this, but is this something too that they could use with Turpin as well?
Turpin's a little different, but
I mean,
maybe
have him back there. It's kind of like, what if you had both?
When they put CeeDee Lamb back there.
I'm saying if you had him and Pollard back there.
Yeah.
Zeke's taking his break, whatever. Put those two. Now you have two options that can both run and catch.
I don't think that's dumb.
I mean, it's just a,
No, it's not dumb. My sigh is I'm very perplexed as to what they think of him, because Turpin is only jumped on the field for a handful of plays game to game in like non-special teams capacity, and it's usually just to use him to do your end around or whatever. They do not seem to have a more complex idea of how to use him.
And maybe whenever you saw what their offense did and can do in Minnesota, maybe if they start clicking like that a little more, that's when Kellen will feel more comfortable saying, all right, now let's implement these other, you know, how Dan Quinn said you get the privilege of rushing the passer. Maybe that's the hey, we get the privilege of having fun with some of these other plays if we're executing the good stuff.
Right. And I like there's so much going on too with this team now. You have a lot more weapons. Like everybody really showed up. I mean, obviously you want to see that same thing happen again from Minnesota going forward, but I feel like now you're starting to see that there's more weapons. It's making it a little bit easier for Dak back there too, giving him more time, spreading the ball around. I think the Cowboys showed a lot this past week. Now I'm not going to try to overhype it because it's one real game where they really, put their foots down, but I just think there's starting to become a lot more options and weapons out there, especially after seeing now, oh, cool, we can use Pollard. We can throw to him too as well.
And then the speculation about Beckham.
Yeah.
And
it's the ability to mismatch, create mismatches for one.
Point.
But you can match up with other people too. Now on the defensive side of the ball, you're like, all right, we have all these different options with our safeties and our alignments. Now we do it on the offensive side too. Whenever you can do that, man, I go back to the Spurs a lot, where the Spurs in the playoffs would play your style or their style or whoever's style. You want to do something tonight? We got you. We can do it. And the Cowboys are there right now.
I also see Gallup looks a little more confident out there too. Trusting
I can
from
definitely
the injury.
see that.
It's just like we said, this was a few shows back when I was here. He has to trust it, and now I feel like we are seeing him trust it. He's getting more with the cuts. He's getting the ball thrown to him a little bit more. So you're seeing a lot more from him. So that's continuing to get more of that progression. And also I think that comes down to the guys as well on the sidelines, believing in each other and continuing to push each other and show that motivation, that love that's giving Gallup even that confidence as well too.